Hello, I'm Craig Constantine.
Hi, and I'm Rob Slater.
Welcome, Rob. I'm excited. I'm always excited, and I don't mean that lightly. I'm always excited when I get to talk to other podcasters about podcasting. You and I had a conversation, like in DM, very briefly, and I went, "Oh, that's interesting. Wait, what?" You mentioned that you were, I'm going to say, repurposing the things you've learned, like the tech audio skills. You've repurposed some of the things you've learned as you became a podcaster, like directly within what you're doing with orthodontics. Is that the right way to say that?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Well done. It's yeah. My job as an orthodontist is to straighten people's teeth, but of course, when you start out, you think about how you straighten the teeth, and as time goes on, you realise that there's actually something else that surrounds those teeth. There's
Like,
a
yeah,
human
this is going
being,
to shape all courts. Let's reshape all sorts of things.
and they've got a life, and they do all sorts of other things. So, musicians are one thing that I suppose one group of people that we have specific problems with. Ronnie Scott, for example, was he needed some teeth extracted, and when he had the teeth extracted, he couldn't play the trumpet anymore and
Whoa.
became very depressed about that. And so we do have a responsibility if we're doing things to make sure that our patients know that there are risks with what they're doing. So I now have musicians that come to see me because they know that I do have an interest in this I suppose particular part of their world.
Forte. Uh,
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you how fast do you think the word will spread, but clearly they're telling their friends immediately.
well, yeah, it does. It certainly is word of mouth, and these people came to see me from about sort of 60 miles away, and I'm not sure quite how they found out about me, but
Hmm.
when they came to see me, they were really concerned that they'd seen 4 orthodontists before, and none of them seemed to get what the difficulty was with having orthodontics. And for most people, it's about the timing. They might have a big concert that they need to practice for, or it could
Hmm.
be about grades, or it could be that they have a difficulty that's developing because their teeth are actually starting to move, and so there are little spaces that air is escaping from. And so, having done the podcasting workshop and got to know you, Craig, and then joined as a remarkable on subsequent ones, I started to look at this when this patient came to see me, and I thought I could. Um, sorry about that. I'm just going to rid of that.
It's all good. The beauty
Yeah,
of this is
yeah,
there's like, this is just whatever.
yeah.
I would have completely ignored it.
And I've been checking for flies and everything. Um,
We're not recording the video.
so so anyway, this guy came to see me and he wanted to have some treatment, and the reason being his one of his canine teeth was sticking into his cheek, so he was having difficulty to get
Huh.
better, but he couldn't have treatment because treatment would involve having teeth extracted, but he had too much crowding for the teeth to be extracted, and for him to get through the treatment without potentially destroying his plate irreversibly. So when he came to
And
see
what
me,
instrument does he play? Or
he
does he
played. Oh
say
yeah, he plays the
it's
cornet.
just the cornet player? Yeah.
Yeah,
So I long ago, many, many moon ago, used to play trumpet when I was like in, a junior high and high school. And I can't imagine, I mean, playing the trumpet was painful, like you play long enough. I can't imagine like somebody remove a tooth or like do anything like that in your mouth. I mean, how long does it take just if everything goes awesome, if you remove a tooth, how long is it before you're basically back to where you were in terms of general health?
well, usually you'll recover within a week. So normally we expect to be able to fit a brace about a week later. But the problem is that taking a tooth out is irreversible. You can't put
Mm,
it back. So with this guy, I said, well, first of all, what we need to do is not use a fixed appliance, because if we put this on, then the teeth will move and you can't really put them back to where they were. So I decided we could try using an aligner system, and with that you map out how the teeth are going to move and then create a set of models perhaps 40 models of the teeth as they gradually move. A
Hmm.
little bit like sort of setting stones into a pond so that you can walk across it. And so with this, it meant that I could start moving the teeth, and if it disturbed his play too much, then I could go backwards in the treatment and take him back to where he was originally and not take any teeth out, and that would be a cool thing to try. So we
Okay,
thought,
that's more than cool. That's really neat. Has anybody else on the planet ever done this with like using, I'm going to say, acoustic feedback in the process?
no, not that I know of in this particular way anyway. So we could test out, first of all, his adaptability to the appliance. So the first appliance was a blank; it wasn't going to do anything. So if he had said, "Well, I've worn this for a week and now I can't play even without it," then I could say, "Well, we haven't moved your teeth at all," and
Hmm.
so we could then take it step by step. But the other interesting part of this was that because of the podcasting workshop, I thought, well, why not use Audacity? And then I can get a visual of what his play is like. And so I got him to play some scales and play a few little pieces that he was having difficulty with now. And then what we could do is see if one, his play improves, and if necessary, we could re-record exactly the same scale, and
Right.
then put those on Audacity side by side, or perhaps even overlay them and look at the differences and see what the improvements are, if things are getting worse, and if potentially we could just go backwards in the treatment if necessary, and then record again and see if the recordings improve. Uh,
Yeah, or pause at one step, like, whoa, that, what you thought as a orthodontist would be a small change. That's a big deal for him. Okay, let's just sit here for weeks or months while he relearns to play each step of the way.
Yeah, and what's actually come out of this is that because when you've got teeth which are very crowded, it creates spaces that are actually closed up a little bit when you have the aligner in. And so I said, well, surely, you just take your aligners out. How many hours a day are you playing, because you need to wear the aligners? And he said, no, I'm actually playing with the aligners in.
Huh.
So he's found that there's more benefit to him having the aligners in. So that's reducing air escape to leaving them out. So when he played, he kept them in. And it's just those very, very high notes that he has difficulty with. But there hasn't been any deterioration, and he thinks now he's getting better with
Huh.
with the aligners.
That's
So
fast. Okay, that's
but-
fascinating.
And so over the summer, he's taking his grade 8, and he's also got a big national concert because he's in this national band, and he's going to play at that. And then we have this gap, and so we've arranged it with his dentist to now have his teeth removed, and then we will switch, and then we'll get the treatment done. And I'm hoping that we can do his treatment over a 6-month period. But I can only do that because I've got so far with the aligner system without taking teeth out. So it reduces the amount of time he has with the fine tuning thing that we'll use later. So yeah, that's the exciting thing about this.
Have you talked to which it's a which way book? Do we want to say, have you talked to any other podcasters who you've seen this spark some, like, I'm going, this is really cool, but it's not making me think like, oh, you know what I want to do? Have you talked to other podcasters who want to run with this? And I was also going to say, have you talked to other dentists and orthodontists about this who've thought of new projects to work on? So there's like two different ways to go with the same kind of idea.
Well, I haven't talked to any podcasters about it that much, actually. So it's really interesting that you picked up on it. But I've certainly talked to my associate, and he was really interested to this idea that you can go backwards in treatment and put things back where they were, because there are so many patients out there that you are worried that they may have some kind of dysmorphic problem that's in the background. So if you can put the teeth back to exactly where they were, then it's a great way to balance risk and benefit for the individual. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and I hadn't really thought about orthodontics in that way until I started using the aligner systems.
Huh. I get 900 questions. Are you trying to, what I wanted to say is how much bandwidth do you have? Like, are you imagining this is going to be something that you're just going to mix in with what you and your partner currently do? Or is it like, whoa, we could pivot and become the world, leaders in because there are, a lot of people, not just like primary, secondary school students. There are a ton of people who play woodwind instruments, brass instruments. There's a whole, and
Mm.
singers and opera. I mean, like, this is not, I mean, it's a niche, but it's a huge market of people.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it started off for me with somebody from a symphony orchestra who had teeth which were starting to cross over, his lower incisor teeth. And as a trumpet player, the air escape was increasing, and he felt that he couldn't get that little bit further. And so when we did the treatment for him, I did go and see the symphony orchestra once, about a couple of years after I'd seen him and completed the treatment, and he was playing first trumpet. So he clearly, it could be just that mindset changed, and so he, then could move forwards. But it was interesting that it did, and in our area, because we have this major orchestra, it means that these people all need other jobs outside of what they do. So they all teach music in the evenings. So we have stacks of kids in all the schools being taught by these people. And we have symphonia for the kids. We have these central wind band, or, all sorts of things. My son played recorder for years and did really well at that. And so I suppose it's always been in the back of my mind. And combining that with the technology that we use for podcasting was this sort of bringing together of two different worlds. And I suppose I don't think of myself as somebody who is desperately trying to claw my way to be a world leader. And I think it's one of those things where if you just work hard at something, then things just kind of happen, really. And my name seems to have just become.
I've always been lucky, and the harder I work, the luckier I get. Right?
Exactly, the Gary Player. And so it's exactly that, isn't it? You just fall into these little rabbit holes, and off you go. But yeah, it's fun, and it makes your work more interesting, doesn't it? If you don't just do your day job and go home.
Yeah. Have you, how do you, my perspective, how do you resist the urge to like build a sound studio in your dentist office and just like go down the rabbit hole of all the tech? Like, how do you manage to bring enough of it in so that it's helpful to the people that you're working with and not have it, I always say, not have it eat your face?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question, because the average dental surgery or clinic is like a kitchen. And of course, as podcasters, we all know that the kitchen is the worst place to record. and so we've got this clinic. Fortunately, in the clinic, there are these wipe down paintings that we have. So that, I suppose, gives a little bit of reduction in the reverb. And fortunately, it didn't sound as bad, but I am thinking that as we do this, if we get more and more of them, we will start to have to get a room that's specific for this purpose, with a bit of baffling around, because I think the reverb might get in the way if we're really starting to look at fine tuning these really small areas. Then we will need more. So yeah, I think it's a rabbit hole I'm about to step into, Craig.
Have you seen? I can't remember what it's called. So there's, obviously there's so many different ways to set up your microphones, but then people start talking about like recording in stereo. And then there are ways to set up, spatial recording, like Dolby surround sound is a common one people have heard of. And it just, they use multiple microphones, but there's a specific geometry to how those mics are set up. And that's how they figure out what we've recorded. And then how do you reproduce the sound? And there's one, I think it might be called binaural recording, where it's basically a mannequin head, except the head is specially, like the material and everything is special. And the microphones are inside ear canals built in the dummy head. So the thing has ears and everything. And what it's trying to mimic is, well, none of these recording systems are actually picking up what my ears hear if I sit in the theater, because, my hearing is crappy, but the normal person has good binaural hearing, but your pickup mics are mounted in these little tunnels inside these, cartilage pickup systems. So they actually have binaural dummy heads that you put the thing in the room, and then it's just a head with a pair of ears.
Wow.
And I'm almost wondering if it might also be interesting. I mean, maybe you don't want to do that because the thing is expensive, but maybe what you want to do is expand from just recording a single channel to maybe recording them just in regular stereo, like at a specific distance, so that you have a more reproducible system, or like a, not more reproducible, but like a system that captured even better quality audio.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going how primitive my setup is. I use my laptop with the mic in the laptop, and and just as he's about to play, because I haven't considered it before, is tickling the 12. Are we going to tickle the 12 with me being in this part of the room?
Yep.
I think we tickled the 100. It was blasting red, so I've moved back in the room. But I was amazed at how it's sort of almost a reverse of a sort of logarithmic scale. As I moved back, it just came right down very, very quickly. Yeah. So there's clearly this sweet spot in the room where I'll have to be, and I kind of know where that sweet spot is now. But yes, I think I'm going to need to up my game with the technology.
Or, hey, tech geeking, they make those little collapsible, it's like a plastic collapsible box that's got a side missing. So it's a 5-sided cube, and the inside is all full of egg foam. And then you can put your microphone in there so that the thing is like a directional pickup, and things don't echo off of it.
Yeah.
It works pretty well if you don't have a very quiet room. And the other thing I was thinking was you, way down in the geeky land, the recording systems are just recording numbers, just an integer, and then they sample how loud are things right now, and they just record that as a stream of numbers.
Yeah.
And the latest in recording equipment, I'm looking, I think I'm recording in 32-bit, but the latest recording equipment records in 64-bit. And with the microphones that are on there, there's no more record level. The range of that you can represent with 64 bits is so wide that you can scream into the equipment, and like there's no ceiling in terms of what it can record. Wow. There might be something else to look at. It would be like, oh, maybe I can just pick up a 64-bit Zoom recorder, and there are other ones out there.
Yeah.
And then you can just be like, whoa, tickling the 100, but the recorder doesn't clip because you have a ton of range. But just something I was like, I keep looking for an excuse to need that so that I can buy new gear. I don't know if that's going to fly, but I'm like, ooh, just something I thought of.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I'll have to try that. Yeah. So
like I'll fish for other interesting things. So now that you've gone, or at least you've seen the rabbit hole of using audio technology in like your regular normal work, has this affected how you do your podcasts at all? Like, has it come back the other way now in any?
I think I've been interviewed by Tanya Del Rio for her podcast, Happy, Healthy, and Zen, and it's at the moment there are these two slightly separate worlds. It seems that there's my professional work, and then there's the podcasting world, and then there are these occasional little sort of strands that bring them together. But in a way, what I quite like with the podcasting is to keep it separate, because what it is for me is it's this regular creative thing that I'm under pressure to produce, and having that pressure there of knowing that by Wednesday I need an idea, and that idea needs to be actually something tangible by Friday so that it can be published on Saturday, has led me to being a little bit more imaginative about what I do with my blogs on my website professionally as well. So there are I think creativity is a good thing. And within the dental or medical profession, creativity can be something of a problem, because if you go too far out there, then you can get into trouble. And so I'm looking really at ways of being innovative, but knowing that what I'm doing is really good and safe for the patient. And a lot of these ideas have come out of podcasting, really, because of having to be creative every week. This week, for example, I was thinking, what am I going to do? And Wednesday is always the day when I think, what on earth am I going to do this week? And it just occurred to me that the football was on Tuesday, so England played Denmark, and England actually beat Denmark. And I thought, well, it would be sort of quite interesting to do something about that, because the first match, Christian Eriksen, the Denmark's best striker, he collapsed on the pitch. And he had CPR, he was taken off. There was a great worry about him dying, and he survived. He's been in hospital. And the national Danish team they're playing in his spirit now. And they've got to the quarterfinals, semi-finals. And so it was like this double-edged thing that England had beaten them, and they've come all this way through the tournament from the very first game of the tournament. This disaster happened, and they've come through to the semi-final. So it was interesting to sort of think about that in relation to the development of football, and how it went from being two villages fighting over a ball and trying to get it to the other person's parish church, and people being killed in that process, and football being banned as well in the 15th century. And so it'd be quite good to try and put something that brings all of that together. So that's been this week's podcast. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I'd have thought about things in that way prior to doing the podcasting workshop.
Well, super interesting. I hope everybody has found a new, I don't want to say excuse, but a new excuse for like, no, wait, this tech stuff that I'm doing, it tends to come back around. These ideas that we don't realize we're planting, they sprout up in unexpected places with new ideas. Well, Rob, it's a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you, and
it's a real honor to be asked to talk to you.
Well, you're too kind, but thank you. All right. Have a good day. Thanks.
Thanks very much.